Good evening, and welcome to the January 14th, 2015 board meeting of Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. Would you all please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First of all, we will have the reading of the mission statement, please.
Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you, Kelly. And now our vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you, Aaron. First of all, I would like to say that it is the board and my pleasure to be working tonight beside our new interim superintendent, Dr. Betty Poindexter. She has been here all of a week, and I can say that she has been truly broken in. She is no longer considered a new employee. So welcome, Dr. Poindexter.
Thank you
We're
so
thrilled
much.
to have you.
Thank you.
Tonight, our showcase video is going to be postponed until another evening because of problems with being in school, snow and ice and so forth, and the students who do these videos, of course, have not been available or in school to do that. So we're going to postpone that to another day, but it is time to celebrate the joy of learning. We have started out a new year, 2015, and have gotten a few hours of school in the last week. And lots of bright, shiny faces came back to us, and so we are excited to continue with their education. Does anybody have anything that they would like to celebrate this evening during this segment?
You might just mention during the break, the Bob Wettig tournament was extremely successful. Richmond took the title, which is even better.
Absolutely.
And it's always good to win your own tournament. But bigger than that is that there were 16 teams from other places. There were hundreds of people who maybe wouldn't normally come to our school. So we were able to show off a little, and that's a good thing.
And the weather cooperated
It
for
did.
that,
It did
right?
indeed.
Aaron?
Adding on to that, and I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to seem athletophobic. I create that word?
Athletophobic?
Yes. Not only was it a successful tournament, but to hear from a number of coaches, there were a lot of coaches who were here who also have Richmond ties. There were several coaches with other teams who were graduates of Richmond High School. I spoke with a lot of the parents, a lot of players, and a lot of the coaches who said of all the tournaments that they attend outside of the state tournament, this is probably one of the best and one of the best showcases around the entire area. And they enjoy coming to it so much more to the point, the facility, the way that people are treated, the cleanliness, just how everything is
Organization.
formatted. Yes, it is just, they
Well
say
run.
par, it is fantastic, so.
Great, that's great to hear. Okay, thank you. We are ready now for our first public commentary. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak this evening? Do we have anybody signed up? No? Okay, we're going to get this done in about 15 minutes tonight, Dr. Poindexter.
I'll believe it when I see it.
It is now time for oath of office. Mr. Cross.
For the record, I am a notary public, authorized to administer oaths. I believe we have 3 board members beginning newly elected terms, board members Darren Gowski, Robinson, and Mr. Slifer. So if you would, I'd ask you if you could repeat after me. I affirm
I affirm
I affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties
I will faithfully execute the duties
of my office as a member
of my office as a member
of
my
this
office
governing
as a-
body.
of this governing
of
body.
this governing body.
So help me God.
So
So help me God.
Congratulations. There's a written oath you'll need to sign and give to Ally. Thank you.
You're here.
Congratulations.
Yes.
We are
Congratulations.
pleased that you are filling those seats for the next 4 years.
Wait a minute, 4 years? No.
Yes, at least 4 years. Okay, we are now at the point where in January we reorganize as the Board of School Trustees. So I guess I will just continue on if that's okay, Dr. Poindexter.
Okay, that's the way we move.
Okay, so we are ready for election of officers. And I will start with president. I need nominations for president.
I will nominate the current board president to stay in that position for the next term.
Okay, any other nominations?
Do we need to second that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I will second that nomination.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
we, I don't know if it's, I think before we've just nominated a slate, and we had a discussion about keeping the same officers in for the next year, especially since we're going through so much right now. Can I nominate the slate of officers that are currently Linda Morgeson, Jeff Slifer, Vice President, and Aaron Stevens is secretary? Can I do that?
If that's the will of the board,
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
With the consent of the moving party, withdraw the motion.
Yeah, that's fine. I can withdraw my, shorten the process, so.
okay. So Mr. Slifer has withdrawn his motion.
So do we
So-
second yours then?
Okay.
Now we
No,
have
now
it.
you need to make the
I
motion.
make the motion that we keep the slate of officers the same for this next year, with Linda Morgeson being president, Jeff Slifer being vice president, and Aaron Stevens being secretary.
What's your name?
I'll second that.
And seconded by Jeff Slifer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Now, you want to take over?
Okay, but we're really looking now at our board calendar, board meeting calendar, and I'm not sure who all might have a copy of our calendar, but
It is posted.
it is posted, and of course, our next meeting is January 28, which we would notice, and certainly for the patrons in the audience that might not have that copy in front of them. And then moving again on the usual schedule, I believe, is that we'll have a February 11 meeting and a February 25. So that's probably far enough to go in enumerating the meetings that are out there, and then certainly look on look at the posting for the March, April, and on.
Do we have to accept them?
Mr. Cross, do we need to vote on each one of these? Do we need to vote on our calendar? Okay.
Okay?
So, so the recommendation is being made that we use the dates that have been posted. So do I have a motion? Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? All in-
I was just going to say, just for the public who doesn't know, our November 23rd meeting, the week prior to Thanksgiving, that meeting will be on the Monday.
Correct. Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we're ready to move on now to appointments.
Okay, we have the appointments of the fee contracts and the additional appointments here of, let's see what we have going here. The appointment of the school treasurer, appointment of a deputy treasurer, and the appointment of a board of representatives to accept bids.
Okay, do we need to take each one of these separate?
I think the contract needs to be separate, and the other appointments can be done by common motion.
And then, of course, we need an appointment of a school attorney and an appointment of an Indiana School Board Association rep in addition to that.
Okay, so why don't we take the school attorney appointment first?
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Aaron Stevens, seconded by Dixie Robinson. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
And now we will do our
Deputy treasurer.
our treasurer.
Back to the top,
I've
okay.
got to get back to my page. I'm sorry.
All right. The recommendation is Karen.
Okay. You want to, do you want to give the appointments,
Okay. Yeah,
appointment of school treasurer?
yeah, and that, the recommended appointment is Karen Scalf, Director of Business Affairs, be appointed as the treasurer of the Richmond Community Schools from January 1 to December 3/1.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Kelly Baumgardner,
I'll second.
seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Okay, that's the treasurer, and then the deputy treasurer is Janet Elstro.
Okay, do I have a motion? A
Make
motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions?
For the record, that actually is coming to you as a recommendation. Ms. Scalf, being the newly appointed treasurer, she makes a recommendation to the board for her deputy, and then the board consents or ratifies.
Okay.
Okay, so the recommendation has been made by Mrs. Karen Scalf. So, let's see, do we have a motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Aaron Stevens? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And number 3 is the appointment of the board representative to accept bids. And there is a recommendation below that the Board of School Trustees appoint the following people as representatives for the Richmond Community Schools. And that is Karen as Director of Business, Bob Tidrow, Barb Bergdahl, Maggie LaRue from Food Service, Janet Elstro, John Hamilton, and Glenn Slifer.
Make the motion to
Okay,
accept.
motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Okay, we skipped number 4. We've taken care of that. And the next is the appointment of the Indiana School Board Association representative.
Okay, we need someone who is willing to be our representative. Aaron, you have done that in the past. Do you wish to continue that in that role?
I still have work to do with them, so I would appreciate it.
Okay, so We need a motion. Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We also have some standing committees. We have a policy liaison from the board. So let's see. Kelly, have you been doing that? You and
Jeff and I.
Jeff? So who would like to volunteer for this prestigious position?
But isn't that different than from being on the policy
Oh, it-
committee? I think it is.
No, I don't.
It is?
I think they are.
I think it's separate.
ISBA liaison and the policy committee are two separate.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
two separate.
So the policy liaison,
More of a legislative liaison
Yeah,
to
it's a
the
legislative.
ISBA, sort of keeping track of
Well, we have
education
legislative.
issues.
we have a legislative on here, though. So are they,
They're different, I think.
I was legislative last year, and also Jeff and I were policy committee, but I guess the policy committee we were on is not the same. Is that what you're saying? There's a policy liaison, so that liaison, I don't know who that was.
The subject here is approval of all existing policies and guidelines.
No, we're still under the appointment of the School Boards Association.
On number 5.
Yeah, I'm under number 5 right now. That's what I just pulled up.
well,
I want to clarify that.
Anybody?
Me on that if you want to, and then figure it out later.
Okay.
okay, you are brave, Kelly.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine that's a new appointment.
Yeah.
I thought that what Jeff and I were doing was
I do
policy.
too.
Do you know Ally?
The policy committee that meets on the first Monday of every month is different from this. This is for the ISBA.
This is the ISBA.
Okay,
Okay.
so.
Thank you very much. We needed to know that.
Kelly, are you willing to
Sure.
do this?
I'll
You know,
have to
we'll-
figure out what I have to do, I guess. But
Well, the fact is that the policy, ISBA's policy gatherings are not really that much. As a matter of fact, it's when called upon by the state to determine existing policies that are going to affect all the school corporations. So it's not something that meets on a regular basis throughout the year. So,
Okay.
and sometimes it doesn't even meet at the fall session.
It's good to have our person there, isn't it? So
Okay.
stupid.
Just for clarification.
Okay.
Thank you, Ally, for helping us out.
Yes. I had a mindset that it was something else, so thank you. And thank you, Jeff, for clarifying. So, we need a motion to, Aaron?
I would nominate Member Kelly Baumgartner for the position of the policy liaison to ISBA.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
And seconded by Jeff Slifer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now we're ready for the legislative liaison. Who would,
I would nominate Member Schleifer for the legislative.
Okay.
I did it last year.
That's okay. I'd look good going over to the State House.
Okay.
And I did it the year
I'd go
before.
with Misty.
So it's your turn.
okay.
I didn't hear a second,
Jeff will
though.
take care of that. I second that.
Okay. Motion made by Aaron Stevens, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Well, you guys are brave souls.
Motion carried. Okay, that was kind of messy, and
So Aaron is the delegate then.
ISBA
if it were
delegate.
my first year as president, I would have an excuse, but
And you have to write the letters now.
Ah, there you go.
I have to write the Oh, there's a trick to this. Isn't there?
okay. Now, our next,
We're to the consent agenda, is that right?
no, we have to approve all of our existing
Okay.
policies and guidelines.
Okay, that brings us back up here then. Okay.
So, do I have a motion to accept all of our policies and guidelines? Motion made by Dixie Robinson, Seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions?
You're going to get a slew of 7,000s coming up in,
True.
what, a
Yes.
month and a half, so, but that doesn't, we're still got to approve the existing ones, but just be aware, you've got a packet coming. It's about an inch or so thick, so.
Okay, it sounds like our work is cut out for us.
So,
I'll eat that for breakfast, Jeff.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, now,
now we're to consent agenda.
Yes.
And the approval of minutes. Board minutes 12:10, board minutes 12:17, board minutes 12:16. I'm doing them in reverse there. And then board minutes January 7.
and we actually will just do the entire consent agenda.
Great.
So,
So we'll also do human resources.
uh-huh.
Okay, the human resources, again, is the employment, the extra duty employment, the retirements. Do you need elaboration on those?
No.
Okay, resignations and termination.
And those are all posted to the web, so we do not, we just approve them.
And then we go to accounts payable on the consent agenda. And again, those are posted and they're available for your review.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, motion made by Jeff Slifer,
I'll second.
seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. All those in favor signify by saying, any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we're ready for action items,
Action
and we
items.
take these separate.
Okay, so you have the second reading of the service learning policy.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept that? Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And then we have the uniform conflict of interest statements available for action as well.
Okay. Motion made by Aaron Stevens, seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions?
I need to add that I was made aware that there are 2 additional conflict of interest statements that need to be brought to the board, and we'll do that at the
Next meeting, right?
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And now we're ready for reports and discussion topics.
Yes.
And we are going to talk about the superintendent search. And we're going to have an update. So I'm going to ask board members to help out here because we're all involved in this process and everybody is working to make this happen and to make it an open and transparent process. So tonight we're going to update everyone on the progress and the process. And I would like to start with Suzanne, because Suzanne has been working diligently on both the application and the brochure, and which has been a lot of work. So, Suzanne.
Sure. The great part is that we were able to sort of start with an existing document that we have and then just supplement it with the information that's more appropriate for our use. So so that makes, in the marketing world, that makes it very consistent with what we already have on hand. And so we were able to do that, and that helped a lot. I think we've packed just about everything we could possibly pack into this thing, so that if when a candidate looks at that, they'll be able to get a really nice snapshot. Now, we hope they also go out and do even more research, but I think they'll get a really good snapshot of our district. So the one thing, though, that I did get it occurred to me when I was just about to finish that when we talk about posting a posting, that actually means we need a paragraph that says we're posting this
Right.
position, which I didn't do. So we need to come up with a quick paragraph. And I also, we had talked about questions at our special executive open meeting that we did last week. We had talked about questions that we wanted to include in the application. Some questions we wanted all applicants to answer based on some of our previous conversations. And one of them was referring to the job description. If there's an item in the job description that isn't your strong suit, how do you deal with
Address
that?
it.
But we didn't include a job description. So I got the job description out of from Elisa from the see, and we can make that update very quickly.
Put it on the website.
Exactly.
Sure.
So,
So
what
where are
need-
we in
we're-
the-
We're finished, other than I need 4 or 5 lines, I'm assuming, that maybe Betty, you could help us with.
Posting?
Yes.
Oh, and yes, in fact, that goes out to the different organizations around the state, and we can certainly help you get that written. in
And
no
we
time.
wanted to, we had talked about what we wanted to be sure to include, such as that we will make every effort toward confidentiality, and we wanted to do some of those kinds of things. And so I just could probably use your assistance on that to be
Okay,
sure that
sure.
we include those things without going crazy. But
Yeah.
so it just occurred to me when we talked about posting, I was so focused on the brochure that we really didn't talk on last Wednesday about the paragraph.
So when do you anticipate?
Oh, it could be done tonight. We can put it on. I
That
mean,
it
I
will
don't know
be-
that Pam isn't available to probably post it tonight, but I bet we could get it on the website tonight, or
Okay.
tomorrow. the
So
latest.
the posting and the brochure will be available for perusal and for applicants to begin that process, correct?
We can do it. We can have it tomorrow. Really, I mean, it's really we're done. Other than just a few lines for that. So,
Could you kind of run us through, when we talk about posting?
Yeah, typically, it's really rather short. You know, you can look in Education Week or a lot of different publications where they do postings, and I typically have looked at those and may pull a few things, but the other thing we have to decide is whether we want to post beyond the state. But it's for the postings at the state level, we simply just give some brief information about the dates when the applications are due, to whom they make requests for additional information, and it's just rather very short. And
Refer
then
them
we
to the
send
website.
that goes to the different universities, it goes to ISBA, it goes to the Principals Association, all the professional organizations here in the state. But the one decision you'll want to make is whether you go outside. It's free, it doesn't cost anything for those that I have mentioned. If you want it to go national and publish it with, I don't know, I haven't checked with the school board if they can do it without cost. If you take it to the Superintendent's Association, where it goes to about 15,000 school districts nationwide, there is a cost for that.
Okay.
And I think it's the decision of the board. We typically, in Indiana, over my 15 years of looking at this, do not get a large number of applicants from out of state. And when we do get those from out of state, they typically have contacts in Indiana. They will have come from Indiana, they know something about Indiana, and they pick up the information in multiple ways. So, you know, you could decide it just is a matter. It's probably, I'm trying to think now, the latest posting I have to board with costs somewhere between $300 and $400. And that was running it a number of times, putting it online, and of course, and then running it in hard copy, but most everyone goes online now at the postings. So we can easily check for you and see if ISBA has a charge, and if not, we can simply send a posting to them, and then if you want to then commit to spending the dollars, you can let us know, and then we can go with the Superintendent's Association as well.
I think that when we talked, we had kind of thought that we would keep it as inexpensive as we could, but yet I think, use the organizations that basically let us do it free gratis.
Yes.
And there were several of those organizations that,
We do. In the state, we can disseminate it widely in the state without costing us, without any cost, incurring any cost.
and then I would think if we don't come up with a number of applicants, then we may have to look
Yeah.
elsewhere. But what are the thoughts of the board?
But with the, what is it, 50-some years of experience that the university team has, not you personally, but the team itself, what we heard was that more than likely we will get the pool that we want from those.
Well, I just would say with my 15 years of experience, we do get out-of-state applicants without advertising out-of-state because they typically have, if people that come back to Indiana do not come back for a second retirement, such as states such as Illinois, Kentucky, and some others where people go there just to get a second retirement, but our retirement system is not such here that you can quickly get vested and come back. So I think that's the reason that we don't have large numbers trying to come back from out of state to Indiana.
If I remember correctly, I think Cassetta said there were a couple national postings that the university team will do that won't cost us anything. And I like your approach. I mean, we've got a 6-week window for applications, so after 3 or 4, if we're not getting any, then we can make a decision at that time if we need to extend it or extend the area.
That was the other question. The timeline that we have, that we had been given, was based on the posting target of not 1/9, and now we're about a week later. So did we want to move the?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay, so I will make that change as well.
And we'll need to, well, the other thing that, that I wanted to discuss tonight and share with everyone and the public is that there is going to be tonight, or in the morning, we are rolling out a superintendent portal on our website. And so posted on that portal will be important information about the superintendent search. And I am figuring that is where our posting will be.
That would make sense.
Okay, and so you will be able to view the brochure and the posting. Also on that website will be the timeline, and we have the timeline posted this evening to our agenda. So, and that timeline, obviously, we just made a decision to change that just a little bit, but so that we have a full 6 weeks of the posting being up. And we don't want to shortchange ourselves. And I think we were okay in that timeline because our next meeting with the university search team is going to be March 4th. And that's when we're going to be reviewing the resumes and so forth of the applicants. So, so check out the timeline. We have posted the university team, their services, so that everybody understands exactly what their role is in this. We're also posting, there is something to read about the participation in the superintendent search process. We have had people who have graciously volunteered to help us in that process, and we wanted to make sure that we are upfront and we explain how we are working that process and what the university search team has suggested to us. So read that. There's also a survey that is available for you, and we have already received a lot of responses, and we hope to receive a whole lot more. And then the other thing that will be that is going to be posted is about community forums. And would someone like to speak to Kelly? Would you?
Susie and Aaron and I met to talk about all of the different groups that we need to contact. And so far, and Susie probably she was kind of spearheading this, so I'll just go off of what I know. We have reserved McGuire Hall on January 21st, 22nd, and 29th to get the input of all of the employees in the Richmond Community Schools. We'll probably be sending emails to also some groups from outside of Richmond Community Schools too, so that they can meet with us. And those times, I imagine what we should do is do a list and post it to the web, but
It is
and
ready
then-
to go.
and then we can have 2 or 3 representatives at each meeting. 2 of the meetings on the 22nd and 29th are at 3:45, so that they won't have to go home and then come back out. And then the January 21st meeting's at 6:30. Then Aaron talked to over at the City Building. The council chambers are reserved for the 20th and 27th from 8:30 to 10 in the morning for community input. Linda, you were going to talk to Kelly, I think, about the teachers, about meeting with teachers.
No, that's something else. No, the teachers will be the McGuire Hall.
Okay. Well, we had had that separate, but that's fine. And then there has been an email sent to the 3 intermediate schools regarding meeting with students in like a student type forum. And those, I don't know if Susie's received any word on that. But then Aaron was also checking at the high school with Ray.
Ray is definitely, we have spoken a couple of times, and she is putting together the,
I've got the kids. We just need whenever
Great.
it is convenient for you.
All right.
We will be ready.
just give us the date and.
Okay, so we just
Those-
need to get everything firmed up in a document, and then everyone needs to sign up to participate in these, so that we all don't have to be at 12 meetings. 2 or 3 of us can go to each meeting. And
So
all
we'll
we're-
work on that from the board angle. But I was able to communicate with Susie today and confirm the dates, times, and locations, and those will show up on the portal tomorrow.
Okay.
They are ready, with the exception of the student forums, and we are waiting on those dates, and we will post those on the web later. So,
Should we just contact Kelly for the ones that we want to go to, so that you're sure that there's 2 or 3?
Yeah, I imagine the way this should work, and again, Susie was heading this, but we'll need to send out a list to all of you and do it in an organized fashion,
Okay.
and, to have it all.
well, everybody can access it from the portal tomorrow. We all can access it and look at our calendars and decide
That'll-
what we can, which ones we could attend, and then if we could just send our names to you and which ones we can
That'd
attend.
be fine.
And then if there's some holes that need to be filled in, can we do that? Would that work?
That would be just fine.
Okay, Aaron?
One of the things that we'd also discussed is we are keeping these meetings with the public to a time frame of about an hour, no more than an hour and a half. We've got, like the ones at the City Building, it's from 8:30 until 10 o'clock. That's just to allow for a spillover in case. But we're keeping the meetings at an hour, no more than an hour and a half so we can have good, diligent conversation, no redundancy. Plus, we don't want to belabor anyone from the rest of their life for that day. So,
Well, and I would also like to say that we have already begun conversations, because there's a parent group that meets, and they met in December, and so I know that Dixie and Susie and Kelly attended that, and I think we had reported about their input, and Suzanne and Dixie attended a forum this week. And you guys want to share
Sure.
about that and who
Was
that
that-
was with?
Yeah, it was a group, not all university folks, but it's the Complete College. It's a group that's working on graduation rate, basically, for the university sector. And it's a nice cross-section, people from both education and community organizations. And we essentially had a conversation around the survey. Most of them had already begun to engage in conversations, so they were very prepared with their responses. Many of them had already completed the survey online, and so we took some, we left with some completed surveys, but many of them had already done them. But the conversation was very good, and really, I don't think we heard any surprises. Lots of recognition that of things that we've talked about before. Community involvement by the superintendent was one that came up often, and marketing, which I was really happy to hear. Just the idea that we really need to have someone who understands the necessity of telling the great stories that we have to tell and helping with economic development, because they were represented as well. So those, I think, were probably the sort of common, seemed to come up. And then the understanding of our student population, possibly some experience with a diverse economic population.
Anything else, Dixie?
No, just there were some very, very, and it was wonderful to hear, very positive comments about teachers, staff, the school system itself, how it's turned itself around, and the climb upward that we've made, which led into the marketing, because they said we have got to get those stories out there, and we need a stronger marketing approach. And they commented, like Suzanne said, frequently about how positive it was to have a superintendent that is involved, participating, and adding to the community by being in the organizations that we have here. They found that as very, very positive, not only for the school system, but also for the community at large.
Representing the economic engine that we are, and actually in behaving that way, which I think is very good. We also got a couple of really nice testimonials, personal testimonials from some folks who have kids in our schools. So I captured those, and we'll be trying to use those later, because they were very good.
Well, thank you. And one other organization that that we went and visited was the Chamber Education Committee, and I think Jeff
Susie.
and Susie Knight, but Jeff attended. And is there anything you want to share? That was a pretty dynamic group of people that
I was really surprised at the size of the group, and later on I found out that they had a lot of visitors, but the group was over 20 people, so I didn't realize it was that large. And it was kind of, we learned what approaches we should use, because we didn't get all of our questions out in the beginning, because once we got one question out, then a conversation took off from there. So they weren't aware of the surveys, so we were just encouraging them to participate in the surveys and be involved, and many of them had very positive comments, community involvement, of course, understanding the student population, all the same things that Suzanne just mentioned. So every one of them said that they were going to answer the surveys, and they were going to encourage other people to answer the surveys. So, which was nice, because they were there, but they also represented other entities too.
So I encourage our audience, our TV audience, and people here to participate in these forums. Obviously, if you have a group that you would like for us to come and share with and to get input from, we are more than willing to do that, but we are trying to provide some dates and times so that we can get lots of input, because we do value that input. On the portal, on the community forum page, it also gives the format that we're going to try to utilize from for each forum. So we're learning as we go through this. And so not only will it help us, but it will also let you know what to expect in going to one of these forums. And Mr. Cross.
One point I would make, I think you alluded to it when you went to the chamber, and I think Dr. Borf was a very vociferous advocate that our public education system is a key component of economic development. I would suggest that the Economic Development Corporation of Wayne County at least be directly contacted and
That's a great.
elicit their input, because I think they have a little bit unique perspective to bring to the table, because they're dealing with site selectors and what have you, and really know whereof they speak when it comes to addressing issues in the labor force.
Thank you. Kelly, will you
Yeah.
take care of that?
And Valerie Schaefer was actually at the meeting. We were in attendance yesterday, whatever day it was. What day was that?
Thank you. Any suggestions like that, we are open to, and because we want to get the best possible candidate that we can, and we want our community to be involved. So we are going to be updating this portal so that you can follow along, and so that you know what is happening with the process and with the progress. So do you have anything, Dr. Poindexter, that you'd like to add? You're an expert
Well,
at this.
I
so.
would just say that I'm really almost overwhelmed with the energy that you're putting into getting this done. We go in and we work with school boards, and we suggest that they meet with groups such as this, but I don't think I've seen this much energy before. So I commend you.
Thank you. Anything else that we need to share, or loose ends that we need to tie up as a board? So I'd like to thank Rob Tidrow and Pam Lips for their help in getting this portal going. And I know everybody will be anxiously awaiting for it to appear on the website to log into. So we will move on.
Okay.
We are ready for our work session.
Yes.
Concerning trimesters, semesters, curriculum delivery structure, K through 12.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Can I perhaps just give a minute or two of background that brings us here, and then we can
Please do.
begin the discussion in whatever way. One of the things that I have noted in my short time here, that Richmond has had a history of reorganization to maintain progress. You know, I'm looking back with Mark, and just a little more than 2 years ago, you had the reconfiguration where you went to the K4, 5, 8, 9, 12. And everything I see along the way have been actions that you've really taken to add quality to the educational programs. One thing that is constant for us in schools today, and I think that's change, and it's happening. Sometimes we initiate that change, and sometimes that change is initiated. There's reasons for that change that are initiated outside the Richmond Community Schools. And certainly one of the things that we have to address is our semester schedule, semester exams that our students will be taking, and how we could begin to do those exams with the schedule that we have now. You know, students may take a course for a period of time. They may not get the rest of the course until, you know, they'll have a block of time before they finish the course, and just how that can be. So that would be extremely difficult with a tri-semester schedule. And there's a lot of, I guess one of the areas over the years that's been extremely important to me is to, first of all, focus on the curriculum. And if there are more effective ways to deliver that curriculum, then that's good. But at least the decisions we make need to be, at least to have begun, with how we can be really effective in what we're going to teach and how we're going to teach it and how we're going to measure it. And so that's the discussion we've had here in the district office, is to really come back to that and say, how can that be done? And then, with the help from a lot of people working very, very quickly, we set out together the research that's there to provide us some information. Given my background and my study of the relationship between allocated time and student learning gain and those things through the years, I think I've come to believe that there's very little solid research out there that is usable for us in making this decision, simply because those studies that have been done were fairly narrowly limited, and you can't really generalize from a Michigan study. You can't really generalize from a few of the other studies there very well, because they've maybe looked at one or two subjects, but any gains are just kind of balance out. So we really have to come back and look at what's possible, I think, to do here, realizing that, number one, we've really got to focus on delivering a curriculum that we can measure. And in some way, the state has said you're going to be measuring the success of that curriculum with state exams. So that pushes us a bit in order to come to something there that can work for us. You began that discussion actually December 10th, and so I think the work that we have done in trying to get the packet together and provide some information was moved forward as a result of the discussion that you'd had December 10. If there may have been some discussion out there, and there probably was, we have a limited budget. We can't fund everything that we want to fund, and so maybe a change in the delivery structure needs to occur. But whichever way we look at it, if we start with curriculum and we look to the cutting of resources or vice versa, it seems that we have to at least put out there in front of us a way to deliver instruction that can match with the way it's going to be measured at the state level. And so discussion can move forward from here in whatever way we want to in the information that we have in the packet. I know that those of you that have read the packet are aware that many of the schools that started with the trimester have already moved back to the semester, and I would expect, and certainly Ray will be able to address that more fully because she's probably spoken to some of those people in the school setting, are the same issues that we have here. When you get down to looking at cost is probably somewhere ranging between 9 to 11%, depending on what you read in the delivery, in the difference in the delivery structures. So the discussion, I guess I can say we can begin everywhere at once. You can begin at any point that we want to have further discussion of what's out there and what the needs are.
Dixie?
I read all 57 pages.
I commend you.
Plus some other things.
Yes.
And I remember when we went to trimesters that we were having grave concerns over kids not passing Algebra 1.
Yes.
And they needed that second try, and that was a big thrust then. I don't know where we are with middle school and kids moving into high school and how that affects algebra now, because we have done so many other things besides just the trimester schedule. But I know that was one issue, and in the North Carolina study, it did talk about higher percentages of students passing Algebra 1 on the ECA exam, or I guess it was ECO exams in that study, ECA for us. So that was a concern. However, I can see with the classes that we have now at high school, we have so many more dual credits, so many more advanced placement classes where I think semesters would mesh so much better with the universities that we work with. But speaking as a former middle school principal, I can also see where trimesters are a benefit to middle school kids because you need that hands-on learning, you need the time for it. It cuts down, even at the high school, cutting down that passing time in the hallways cuts down a lot of behavior issues and things like that. But the middle school in particular, where kids, they need to be active and they need that time, and sometimes that semester time when you had a 45-minute class period, it was like you got in and you basically had 30 minutes of instruction because it was time to settle them down, time to get them ready for their homework and go out. And I never felt we had enough time. So that's just my thoughts.
How did I'm not sure someone else here can answer it, but how did the optional, the choices that the middle school people have, middle school students have, how did that affect their block of time in the required courses? What I'm hearing is that it decreases the options that they have for specials.
The exploratory classes.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess, go ahead, Kelly.
I just wondered, when I think about it, I immediately start thinking towards the high school, but at the elementary, primary schools, how does that, if we switch to semesters from trimesters and they go through all these tests the state tests and everything, how does that affect their schedule?
I think Kelly and Mark have worked on that and have input from all of the principals, so speak up, either of you.
Yeah, sure will. We did do a survey with the elementary and intermediate principals just to see how is this going to impact you. And so basically the elementaries feel like there's very, very little impact. They have the same teacher, same classes all year long, so it would just change the grading period basically. As far as our assessments, we can customize our assessments however we need to. The only ones that we can't are the ones that are state mandated, and those are going to occur in the spring no matter what kind of schedule we're on. It really very little impact at the elementary level.
So then when you move to the middle school level?
There is some impact there. Basically, the biggest one would be right now students can choose 6 exploratory classes a year, and it would go down to 4. So it would be things like exploratory language and health, technology. They've created a technology class. So it would be just, it may not be that there would only be 4 options. There may be 6, but students would just choose 4. I don't know how it would work out with
How
staffing.
did the teachers feel that you talked to about switching back?
It's like any other kind of change. It's about split. Basically, the report from Dennis was it really won't impact us that much. Test felt it would be a little bit more impact, but you need to remember Test was the first one to go to trimesters and cited some of the same things: less time in the hallway, longer class periods. So our 2 intermediate schools aren't on the same schedule right now. One of them has a 6-period day and one of them has a 7-period day, which is a little confusing.
Well, I'm trying to think back on what's driving this conversation. Is it financial, strictly financial, or?
Okay. I think the discussion may have started to say how can we reduce cost, but I think the discussion quickly turned to, especially to the high school, with major concerns about how we can actually do well on semester exams with the trimester delivery structure.
As you'll recall, when we talked about the change in this statewide test, that now, being on trimesters actually gives us an advantage on that high-stakes exam because our students can take it at the end of second try when they finish their course, and if they don't pass, they get another opportunity in the spring to take it. But it's going to be a one-time-a-year high-stakes exam that will happen in the spring, and so if you're a student and you take your math class, let's say first try and second try, you will be from February until the time of the test in the spring without any course. Or conversely, if you take it second try and third try, you'll be tested in the spring over content that you've not yet covered because you're just now in that course. And so the assessment model that the state's adopted has really said you need to spread that content out across the whole year as opposed to just 2 tries.
Okay.
So that's my concern.
Well, I went back and the trimester was adopted in 2007. Is that correct? 2006, 7, or 7, 8, 6, 7.
6, 7. It was before I came on the board, and that's why when I was reading it, it wasn't in response to the being labeled a dropout factory. We had already put it in place. I think we were making moves
Absolutely.
towards knowing that we had a problem and trying to
Well, I went back and tried to read some of the comments from previous board meetings when this was taking place,
Right.
and just to give me a little bit of background information. And I guess I just want to make sure that we are
Yes.
not leaving anything untouched in our discussion of this.
Right.
And I understand the academic part of it, certainly. And I want to make sure that I understand that it doesn't affect elementary, probably doesn't touch elementary at all.
No.
But I think that we need to ensure that we are giving sufficient attention at the intermediate school. Because the intermediate school has been under transition a lot. And so this would just be another one of those moves
Right.
that would affect them. And so, and in the report that we were given, very little information was given. There was just a little paragraph about the intermediate schools.
There's
So-
just not been any study done on the intermediate schools that we were able to find.
Well, and
It's been
even,
more than-
but like you said,
Right.
we're going to have to do it within
Right.
our own. But one of the things that seemed to stand out to me, and it's one of our beliefs, one of our number one beliefs, is relationships. And as I read about the trimester and the purpose, relationships always came up as being one of the main reasons to go to trimester, was establishing, having enough time with our students to establish those important relationships, which we know and believe that it affects student achievement. So, I want to make sure that we're not leaving that part of it out.
Right.
The amount of instructional time during the day was also another strong component of the trimester. And, we have worked really, really diligently on transitions for our students. That's the reason we reconfigured, was so that there would be less transitions for our students. So that is another concern, is we're going to make more transitions for our students at the intermediate and at the high school. And we're not going to have as much time with them to establish those important relationships. And how does it affect project learning, I guess? That was another important aspect of the trimester, having more time to do projects and hands-on learning and that kind of thing.
Higher order thinking.
Higher order thinking, exactly. So I guess one of my questions is, so how have we been able to measure these kinds of things that we have put in place because we felt it was educationally important for our students?
I think what is important for us to note really is the interventions, the things that happened once you had a delivery structure there. Anybody have kind of the sheet in front of you of what actually happened in year by year that seemed to cause the movement, at least as far as improving student achievement? It's in the
There's some
packet.
conversation about the focus on data.
Okay, let's just pull that sheet up and look.
Yeah,
You
it's
have
right
it in
here.
front of you?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go through that?
A focus on standards-based instruction, a focus on data at the school, grade, class, and individual student level, which we know to be the case.
Yeah.
The online graduation academy and credit recovery creation, student support, Centerstone, communities and schools, creation of the early college program, recent creation of the AP Academy, continuation of Project Lead the Way, implementation of focused professional development for improved instructional pedagogy, movement of the alternative program back to the Richmond High School campus.
The intervention that you saw along the way and the change in grades along the way really were not tied to a delivery structure. They could have been done in any delivery structure that we had. I just wanted to be sure that we saw what was happening along the way and how our grades were getting better. But that was not, I don't think, from what we see, tied to a particular structure. I think that's real important for us to note. Am I
It was more the
making sense to you?
interventions that
It were the innovations, the actions that takes place in whatever time that you have allocated that ultimately makes the difference. So the question then becomes to any school district is, given limited resources that we all have in our districts, how do we proceed from here? Because you
Has
can-
there been, has this been taken to discussion? Has there been conversation with REA?
We've had discussion scheduled, and Mother Nature has not cooperated. But we did take it once before the holiday, didn't we?
Yeah.
We didn't get into it.
There's this, and by the way, this is still discussion here. But we haven't had a chance at all. Some of the questions I know you're raising about the affective dimensions of the trimester and whatever, I think we need to hear from our high school principal some thoughts, because she can speak to some of those things that I certainly can't speak to. I can only speak to delivery structures and the things that you can do in any structure that you have.
I think, well, before Ray speaks, I guess, well, and I want to, because the first question I asked myself as a school board member,
Yes.
what information do I need
Yeah.
to support a decision either way?
Yes.
So, you know, what information do I need? I don't even know what to ask for. I was on the board when we made the switch from semesters to trimesters. My son was in his last year of high school. My daughter hadn't reached high school yet. And I remember some teachers were very passionate at that time about not switching. But we also had teachers that were passionate about switching. So in order for us to make this decision, I think from the perspective of the administrator or the teacher, it's going to make a world of difference in what their perspective. If you have a student at the low end of the spectrum, you may have a different answer than what's beneficial than a student is at the high end of the spectrum.
Sure.
The other thing, I guess, the information that I would need to be able to make an informed decision is this all or none? Do we have to do the primary, the intermediate, and the high school? I mean,
We did that before when we had the intermediates on trimesters and the elementary and the high school on
That's right.
semesters, and it wasn't good.
Well, and that's the questions that that's the information and discussions that we need to take place.
It wasn't good in what sense, Kathy?
Well, we had schools all on different grading schedules.
Okay.
Which was very confusing for parents.
Okay.
The parent-teacher conference is here, but not here. That
Okay.
was very confusing. It was just hard to schedule things.
Yeah, that was the
People who-
question I was going to ask. Could you do high school semesters and middle school trimesters and not create a calendar nightmare for parents as well as teachers?
But I think just to finish before, because I am very interested in hearing from Ray, I would also be, have we sent a survey and asked specific questions to every teacher in our district or students and parents, families that's currently enrolled in our school system?
No, we haven't done that sort of thing.
So I would be interested to know, we've got, approximately 200 teachers at the high school? Is that right? Is that,
95 to 100.
No, probably 90 to 95.
okay,
I
100.
think Ray has a pulse on that particular.
So
group.
it would be interesting to know some of that data as well. I mean, so as information comes to me, I mean, think about someone like me. What information do I need from you guys to say, yes, this is worth a switch or not? Of course, economics is a reason. But, and I realize that initially, although I'm glad that we're switching the conversation from the finances to the curriculum, but initially, I think there was a potential savings that we were estimating, or the number I heard was somewhere around $250,000 to $300,000 savings by making this switch.
Sure.
But I would much rather make the cut somewhere else if you can't prove to me educationally we need to make the switch.
Sure, understand that. Okay, Ray, let's time this.
Okay.
Here.
I think just right away, one of the most compelling reasons for a change is, just as Dr. Poindexter pointed out, our curriculum is measured by the state, by the right now, by the end of course assessments at the high school level in algebra and in English 10. So I take that graduation exam in algebra when I am enrolled in Algebra 1B. I take the English graduation exam when I am enrolled in English 10B. The state is, which is great for trimesters. We have worked it out where our 10th graders can actually, we've put all of our 10th graders in Tri 1, English 10A, English 10B, Tri 2, they all test. Those who don't pass are now retesters. We put them in English 11A for the third trimester, and they get to retest, which has been very, very beneficial for us. The new test negates all of that. What is happening, the state is moving to one test. It's just like the old I-STEP. Our students
here we
will,
come.
I'm sorry, what?
GQE, it's like the old
Right, it's right. It's like the old GQE, only it won't be in the fall. The state is going to administer that in May. All of our 10th graders, that will be their graduation exam, and it will be in May. The issue with trimesters is we will have students that will not be in a math or English class from February until May. They will not get a chance to be a retester. So essentially, we are trying to anticipate how are we going to continue to help our students be successful. We're at an 86% pass rate right now on our ECA algebra and on our ECA 10th grade English. We're at 86% in algebra because our 9th grade students in algebra take algebra all year long. Now, they're the only group that does that. Again, because we don't have staffing to continue that in 10th grade or 11th grade and 12th grade. A lot of our students struggle with the math. But because we take those 9th graders and we put them in math all year long, we've been able to go from
And I believe, and I should have brought that, we track all of our data. And I know that in English, our pass rate was 53%. When we first started trimesters, and I believe our algebra was in the 60 percentile. Our 9th grade ECA was in the 30 percentile. Before we did all of this purposeful rearranging and looking at the data and what do we need to do to help our students be more successful. So one of the compelling reasons to change is the fact that that test, the state's changing.
Can I just add one
yeah.
thing about the assessment? Because we keep focusing on that graduation exam, because that's the one that's high stakes for kids. But there will also be a 9th grade
right.
exam, an 11th grade exam, and a senior exam, which won't be counted for or against the students, but will be used for accountability for the school.
For our school grade, yeah.
Yeah, it's all 4 grades at the high school are going to be tied to a once-a-year spring test.
Where we didn't have a 9th grade, we have not had a 9th grade state test, nor an 11th, nor a 12th grade state test. We've only had the ECAs.
I just wanted to ask one question about the GQA at 10th grade level, or whatever it's going to be, at the 10th grade level. That's going to be it? Can they retest?
Yes, they will then have 2 chances to retest in the 11th grade and 2 chances to retest in the 12th grade.
Okay.
Oh, it'll change before they get to the 12th grade.
I can't.
They won't
believe
have
it'll
2
change.
chances.
Come on, I can't.
We don't know.
Yes, Suzanne.
Currently, if a student takes the algebra in 9th grade, are they allowed to take that ECA?
Yes.
So they
right
would not
now-
be able to do that.
Right now, whenever I am taking algebra, if I'm taking algebra in the 7th grade, I can take that graduation exam in the 7th grade, and if I pass it, I'm done with that part.
So basically what they've done by doing this now is to discourage kids from taking algebra early.
Well,
Because why would you take it if it's going to be 2 years before you take the exam?
And here is also what's going to happen. You're going to have 10th graders that will be taking geometry, algebra 2, maybe pre-calculus. They're not taking algebra. Now, there are algebraic functions and things like that you're going to have.
Right.
But again, number one, you're not going to know what the test is like. And one of the things that we're looking at right now, we just got some sample test questions for the high school level. Those just came out right before winter break. I'm going to have my staff take, they don't know this yet, I shouldn't say. Anyway, we're going to sit down and we're all going to take the sample questions. Now, they're just not normal multiple choice questions.
Right.
Here is what they're doing. You have a multiple choice question. Now, Ray, I want you to pick 3 of these 6 answers. So I picked 3 answers. Part 2 of that multiple choice question says to me, cite evidence from the text that you just read to support why you chose those 3 answers. That's not what anyone has been doing. On the Learning Connection, there are all kinds of threads that are going. Does anybody have a multi-step question template out there? And so everyone is scrambling for this switch to a more critical thinking, more reasoning. I can't just read that multiple choice question and guess what the answer is and have a chance of passing it. So we have to change what our common formative assessments look like. We have to change what our common summative assessments look like. Our quizzes, our bell ringers, to replicate what those students are going to walk in and see when they take this new test. And it
the new
scares us
test-
all to death.
When is it in effect, the new test?
It will be in effect, it'll be,
This spring, we will do regular ECA,
Right.
and there will be 3 additional sessions, which will be the pilot of this new assessment, and then it will be live next year.
So,
It's a huge leap for us curricular. It's something that I have been talking to my leadership team and department chairs about. We've been impatiently waiting for the state to give us something that we can begin with. And now that they've done that, we are now looking at the new Indiana academic standards. Well, I won't say they're called Indiana academic standards, and we will start using our professional development to develop the curricular needs that we are going to have to change to so that our students are going to be successful. And as in all things, we know when you change something, there is going to be that implementation dip.
Absolutely.
And we want to lessen that dip as much as we can, because we know our students are not used to multi-step questions.
theoretically, I don't have a problem with the idea of critical, trying to measure critical thinking.
Oh, no,
because that's
yeah, it's wonderful.
where the students need to be. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is to be gained by not by basically forcing algebra to be taken in the sophomore year, because recently it's just been within a couple of years that it was like, oh, absolutely, well, if they're ready, let's get them going.
And we should not change that, and we need to just keep going. What we have to do is, as we do in all things, we have to be creative in finding different ways. Maybe it's the sequencing of our math classes. Maybe we put Algebra 2 in the sophomore year for some of our students. Some of our students, approximately, I want to say 30%, come to the high school and are not ready for algebra.
And I'm aware of that, but there's a fair number that are.
And you know what we do? We keep them in math lab all year long, because that graduation exam isn't until 10th grade.
Okay.
So, again, even when when I talked to my staff yesterday about a trimester versus a semester schedule, I don't think we have to look at it as just a 6-period day or just a 7-period day. I've got a lot of creative people. One of the things that I said to them yesterday, I looked at them and I said, you know what? It is not the structure that got the edge on that tower. It is you. It is every one of those teachers that I have that have worked overtime, double time, triple time to change what we're doing at the high school and become data driven. They are the ones that have that.
So the question is,
not the structure.
Those things that we intuitively think about that schedule that have been helpful to us, which have been the longer periods, less passing periods. How do you not lose that positive?
Well, I think that, and again, the intermediate's different passing period than the high school is too. But I do want to address Linda's concern about the relationship.
Yes, that's a critical one.
Here is what happens at the high school. It is difficult to schedule a trimester schedule, all right? And we knew that, and that's okay. But one of the things that you cannot do in a trimester schedule, I may have Mrs. Stewart for my English 10A, and then I have Mr. Millis after 12 weeks in English 10B. What our teachers are saying, and this is my 10th grade English team, said to me, I would give anything to have my students all year long, because just when I get to know them, boom, they're gone. And they've got another teacher, and they're in another trimester. So the 12 weeks, when elementary, I have my same students all year long. I'm not sure intermediate, Kelly, how that structure is. Do you?
4 subjects year long, but exploratory, obviously.
Okay. So our core subjects in social studies, science, math, and other than English in the 9th grade have a different, most likely have a different teacher every trimester. And they feel that that is actually a negative towards creating relationships. They would love to have their students all year, like our 9th grade. And we do that in 9th grade. And part of that reason that we do it in 9th grade is that's the transition year. We want to make sure that those students have the same teacher in math, that they have the same teacher in English. They're doing all kinds of transitional activities so that we keep them. We know that that 9th grade year is one of the make it or break it years.
Ray, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I should clarify what we were speaking about here, that at TEST, it's not science and social studies all year.
Okay.
They have the trimesters, 2 trimesters out of the 3. So you could have a student in science the first try, not have them in the second try, and have them reappear in the third.
Oh, my.
And you can imagine the complications that creates for preparing for ISTEP, et cetera.
The absence of
One of the
learning.
reasons why a few years ago at Dennis we asked for and were able to get permission to go to all your science and social studies like we used to do, because of the interference with preparation for ISTEP. But TEST still is on that, 3 trimesters, or I'm sorry, 2 of the 3 for science and social studies.
Well, and just to go along with Kelly, there is a difference, and our teachers can tell the difference between students that have had science and social studies for a whole year versus 2 separate semesters.
So if we switch to a semester, will that change anything with the 9th grade? And
No.
will it change anything with being able to work the schedule so that teachers are able to have the students for a longer?
That's one of the positives of a semester.
semester,
It is very easy to connect the teachers and the kids and the classes because you only have 2 and you don't have 3, where you may have a gap in between. Yes. In fact, the 10th grade teachers, English teachers yesterday were going, oh my gosh. Is there a possibility that we could have our kids all year long? Oh my gosh, Ray, we could really, So they're excited about that. And I'm not so sure that we wouldn't look at that model for some of the social studies and some of the sciences that have an A and a B section.
Right.
How many of those can we connect together? Because it does take, especially high school students, it takes a long time for them to trust an adult. So,
Kelly and then Susan.
okay.
One problem that we've had with the trimesters, and I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we had a parent come in, it was the scheduling, when it involved like band and all that. So if we move back to trimesters or semesters, that will solve that problem?
In
with
fact,
AP classes.
yes, that was one of the. If I went back and looked at. Also went back and looked at my trimester notes because I was a proponent of trimesters. We needed a change at that time.
Right.
We
It's a jump
needed
start.
to do something different
It's a major jump start.
because our graduation rate was not good, and we needed to make a change. And it enabled us to have students repeat classes. Well, we didn't have credit recovery then.
Right.
We didn't have our online academy then.
Right.
We have become extremely flexible and want to continue to do so. We've even thrown out the possibility, why can't students take X amount of online classes a year if they want to? I mean, are we not preparing them for not only college or post-college? How many teachers do we have getting their masters online, or administrators getting their masters online, or students taking online courses? So, we could look at the possibility, all right, students, you can take up to 2 online courses per year. Open up another lab, We have, and I lost it, so, next question. Lost that one.
Suzanne, did you get your question answered?
A couple things, I think you sort of addressed it, because a couple of the pieces that were,
Sorry, Susan.
it's okay. A couple of pieces that were key in trimesters were, many teachers were really screaming for that longer chunk of time with students. So what I hear you saying is, you're going to look for opportunities to address not losing that by partnering A and B and having teachers be able to sort of stay with the students. So on any given day, they might not be with them 75 minutes, but they would be with them over a longer period of time. So that's sort of your counterbalance to that. The other one that I think was key in the trimester conversation was the number of opportunities to earn enough credits to graduate. And it sounds like what you're saying is the way that we're counteracting that is there are other ways to do that, alternative ways versus taking a full host of classes each trimester like they might be doing now to earn how many credits to graduate?
42.
42. So in order to earn their 42, they have how many classes in a day? 5?
Right now, 5.
So 5 times 3, they have 15
chances
holes.
a year. If
and
it
now
were
there
a
will
7-period day, it would be 14.
So you lose one. So that's the other thing I think people need to understand. There's only one less chance. Plus, there are these extra alternatives to, and sometimes it doesn't mean repeating the whole thing. Like credit recovery is an opportunity to earn that credit, but maybe not have to go and repeat the entire course.
Right. And if you, in a semester in credit recovery, they can usually complete one course. Some of them will get done 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the trimester. If you lengthen credit recovery to a semester, you're going to have students that are going to be able to complete 2 courses. So again, when we went to trimesters, we didn't have those opportunities like credit recovery and online. We now have online courses in summer school. You finish your online course in 2 weeks, you're done. And so we've really tried to change and to increase the number of opportunities to help make our students successful. And again, I go back to my staff. I love my staff. They are amazing. They are, and I couldn't tell them enough yesterday when I spoke with them. And last Friday, I made myself available all day. I said, hey, come and talk to me about this. These are some hard decisions. And again, I said, and teachers don't do this. They don't give themselves enough credit for the powerful impact that they have on our students. And it's almost like they go, I go, no, you guys are, look at what you have done. And it's them. And they have to understand that. They have to understand how important and how valued and how respected they are, because they are asked to change a lot. Because education changes almost weekly. It seems like nowadays.
It's daily.
Or daily.
The only constant is changing.
But I will go back, the foreign language and math and AP and music were, those of us that remember, were adamantly opposed to the trimester.
Right.
And again, it was the scheduling.
But on the flip side of that, it was some of our students, because we have a high number of students that in stress, I guess, is the best way I can think of that, that are challenged in lots of different ways. We had heard or understood that the research was that fewer classes in any given day was better for them. So we 5 back to 7, that's 2 more shifts of focus in a given day. And in some of the sciences and some of the others, the beauty of having those longer class periods where you could instruct demonstrate and then do a lab all in one sitting was very attractive, and some of them are using it very well, as I understand it. So have you talked at all through how to counteract that very positive piece of the, only having 5 classes instead of 7 classes?
That is the thing that the staff is really anxious to have, and that is time. And that's why the sense of urgency. All right. If we do change to a semester schedule, when you create a schedule, you have to build the schedule first in the computer. You cannot, and that's usually started in December. And we put the brakes on when we had our conversation over here, and we said, look, because you can't build a trimester schedule and then just say, oh, let's tweak a little bit here and there, and it'll become a semester. No. You have to take that, throw it all away, and you start to build a semester schedule. Our students are actually, we're having an 8th grade orientation meeting, although it is talking about academic choices and diplomas and things like that. That sense of urgency is we have to build the schedule, we have to get the kids in the schedule, and then as a staff, if this change is going to happen, they want the time to be creative. We've talked about, you know what? Maybe this is telling us that we need to expand that alternative program at Richmond High School. We've got a lead teacher that is amazing down there. He is amazing. And the family atmosphere is, you just have to come and visit sometime. It is unbelievable what has been created. And, can we put another teacher there, add another 15 students? Can we look at a semester schedule where, and I just read about one today before I came, about a semester schedule that actually had 55-minute classes, and then there was a block class that was in there. Right. We have 0 hour. We have our online academy that is from 3:45 to 6:45 every night. Can we look at that? And we have students right now. We have seniors that need credits. They are taking 5 classes, and they're taking 2 online classes so that they can walk across that stage in June. And this district, you have provided those opportunities for our students because you have all said yes when we've come to you and said, we really need this online academy. We really need credit recovery. You know what? We need 30 more seats, and you have helped us create the success that we've had in this district from K through 12.
It just makes me feel better to know that you're talking about other alternatives to sort of capture or not lose the positive pieces of the trimester, because there are some very positive things about it. And so the idea that maybe it's not all or nothing, like you said,
right,
and that there are ways to do that. And I know there's been some sort of exodus away from the idea of block scheduling, but maybe a hybrid is the way to go to capture those longer class periods to get the science. Because I really like that.
Speak to the hybrid. Back in the 90s, when we looked at block scheduling at Whiteland High School, we decided to go with a hybrid schedule, and we had longs and shorts. Primarily, if I remember, chemistry and biology were in longs, but you have to get a balancing going where kids can take shorts and longs, and teacher schedules too. So it's not an easy schedule to build, and I wouldn't recommend it right away.
I understand that.
But it is possible, and it can provide longer learning periods for some of those lab classes. So, yeah, it can happen. unfortunately, because we were growing so fast at the time and staffing, we had to go back to a traditional schedule.
And we've also talked about that too. We may be able to start very small within our AP Academy with that idea of shorter periods, longer periods. I know that I've had a conversation with Dr. Boroff. I am going to Hamilton Southeastern, and some of the schools in Indianapolis have started what they call senior academies. So I'm going to go up and take a couple of my teachers and administrators and look at that and say, because here is our issue. What I've been saying is, all right, I want to graduate every student at the end of their junior year and before they become 18. Because soon as they're a senior, they get senioritis, and as soon as they're 18, they want to move out of the house and they think they know it all, and they don't have to finish high school. So I'm teasing, but interestingly, I had not heard this. My counselors told me this the other day. They said, Ray, do you realize that we lose some students because they're on a semester schedule? They want to come and enroll in Richmond High School. They're on trimesters. Well, they have to audit a class for 6 weeks. And so guess what they do? They don't come to Richmond High School. They go somewhere where the schedules match up. And we know that most of the schools in the state of Indiana are on some type, most of them are on, all the North Central Conference schools are on 7-period days. I said, well, you guys can't help me much. You're all on the same schedule.
And they all finish earlier in the day, too, I think.
Yes, they do. And we'd be happy to do that. We'd be happy. So we would be happy to finish
Just a
earlier.
hint.
Yes, all those students that have jobs would love that.
Well, and I think we need to go back, because I remember very vividly in 2006, we all know what our graduation rate was. And we were concerned about kids not getting enough credits to graduate. We had an issue with that.
Right.
And not passing algebra. Those were the two biggies that drove the trimester schedule.
And discipline.
But, and discipline, the passing in the hallways. But we have done an enormous amount of things to correct all those issues.
Not
and
just
we did
trimesters.
not have
Right.
the online classes at that time at
That's
all.
correct.
There were none, except what the alternative school was running.
Right, and remember, alternative wasn't even at the high school.
No.
It is so great to have it there because our alternative kids, some of them, will take classes upstairs and downstairs.
Right. Well, and Core 40 drove that. I
Bringing
mean,
them back.
we had
Absolutely.
had to do it.
Yeah.
But now we have other things in place where they can
Right.
earn the credits, and they're able to graduate. We've put a lot more things in place since
Right.
then.
I want to answer Jeff's question. And again, I am not familiar with elementary and middle level, but we have a data system, SWIS, that tracks our data. And at Richmond High School, I would say 90+% of our discipline is not in the hallways. It's in the classroom. So, and again, I do not know what, and Barb's not here tonight, and I know Barb Bergdahl gives us a report at Corporate Council on the discipline. But at Richmond High School, it is the classroom. It's not the hallways.
Ray, there's a question that I haven't had a chance to ask you, but it's been on my mind. We make an assumption that the longer period of time with the trimester is going to give students a longer time of interaction with an individual teacher. But we also, I think, know, too, that some students have a short attention span and can get bored in one activity. I just would like to hear your reaction to that because I haven't had that opportunity to ask.
That would be a resounding yes. You are correct, especially in the 9th and 10th grade. What we are tending to see is there's the instruction, and then students are given time to work on homework, and it's almost a battle sometime with the teachers because they don't want, they've been in class already and they've heard what you had to say, and, I'll do my homework at home and I want to talk to my friend. So that's one of the things that concerns me about getting the most in teaching and learning within a class period. So,
Well, I guess I'm sitting here and obviously I am sitting here, but I'm sitting here thinking that I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. But my question is, how do we hear from our intermediate schools?
right.
And because they are not represented here this evening, and
Kelly's here.
and so, well, yes, but I wouldn't want to put Kelly on the spot unless she wants to speak to it. But I just I know it's probably more impactful at the high school level, but I still feel that I need some more information from our intermediate schools.
And one of the things, Linda, is that I know that the intermediate, or they were middle schools then, were on trimesters 2 years before the high school was. Because we looked at what successes that they were having. One of the things that we've also talked about, if we go to a semester, and again, I need to talk with my staff about this, but doing a progress report, even in a semester, every 6 weeks. I think waiting until 9 weeks is almost, I've buried myself. But if we still did the 6-week progress reports, which would mean, as a parent and a student, I am going to get 2 progress reports before I get my credit in my final grade. So I believe that is something that I can speak for my staff in saying that, the 6-week chunks would be much, and it also creates that sense of urgency with the students. The first 6 weeks, I've got another whatever. And so our homeroom teachers talk to our students. Because we don't know if our students get the grade cards. We mail them home, but we're not sure they get them, so we make sure they get them because we give them to their homeroom teachers. Their homeroom teachers talk to them about grades, about attendance, about behavior. So,
What kind of, and I know schedules, that we're almost to February, and schedules normally,
that's
we're
why I
we're
said
a month
there
and a half
is a
behind.
real sense of urgency.
Right.
Yes.
And so when is, because I know you can do them a little faster now with computers and all that stuff, but what's the very last?
Last week,
Yeah, last week.
About a couple of weeks ago?
December.
No.
Yeah, Rob.
As soon as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
it just takes time to build it, and then for them to build the schedule. But
But it's probably a decision in January, not February or March,
Yeah.
is the way I would look at it. It's a decision in January, at some point, not later. I just want to be, I just want to be sure that we've shared, Kathy, whatever information we have from the middle level. I know that you were attempting to get perceptual data. We weren't asking for anything regarding academic success, but we were just trying to get some perceptual data from middle level. Is there anything that you gleaned that you can share with us?
Well, I'm not even sure 100% that they had conversations with their staff. I really don't know that. I just sent it out and said, could you just, from your perspective at your level, tell me, what would be some possible advantages, disadvantages, and
Yes.
I think, if Kelly's still here, as I said, I think Dennis said really that it wouldn't have a huge impact. It would be on the specials, perhaps.
Right.
Tess was a little bit more concerned, and I'd have to get my notes out to see exactly what those things were, but it was citing evidence about more transitions, kids being in the hallway more, losing the option for the exploratory. They've created a technology class I think they really, really like, which they could probably keep. I would just have to look.
Right, okay.
Kelly, do you,
I'd be fine. I mean, the first thing I would say is I'm not going to pretend to speak for the faculty of test or for Dennis, because I think Kathy just hit on something we really haven't had this conversation.
Right.
And Elisa mentioned that we really haven't, we've referenced it at discussion, but we haven't gone there yet. And of course, we have to have meaningful discussion, and we have yet to have that. So as REA president, I think I need to make that point. But back with regard to Test and Dennis, it's going to impact the buildings differently because we've adjusted our schedule to allow for full-year science and social studies, and Test has not. I haven't spoken to anyone at Test in science or social studies in a while to know whether they're still content with that, whether they see the advantages to that or not. And you may very well get two different, feelings about this based upon how we've adjusted our schedules. And I think most of the people at Dennis are content with what we have. As a history teacher, and at that point I was actually 7th grade, and I was really concerned about the idea that I would have kids taking I-STEP before they'd even had the second trimester. They were only a couple weeks into the second trimester of my class, and they were having to take I-STEP, which obviously was not an ideal situation. So that was the reason we asked for the change. Our class periods are approximately 10 minutes shorter than they are at Test. And the impact of that, honestly, you'd probably have to get both staffs together and have them share how things have worked to find out what are the, what are the things that have gone well and gone poorly in both buildings. But I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had. But regarding the transitions, we just received information on our discipline report through December, and when we went into trimesters, one of the arguments for it was fewer transitions means fewer referrals because it's in the hallways where a lot of those conflicts occur. Truth be told, I'm not sure we're seeing that. I'd be curious to see the results from 06 and compare them with what we just got, because what we've seen is a huge jump in discipline referrals out of classrooms. Yeah. So in other words, all we've done is move the location. We haven't necessarily changed the behavior. So my personal opinion is if we think we've had a huge impact on intermediate adolescent behavior, we're fooling ourselves. So, but I do think what I would recommend, and obviously it's going to happen really quickly, would be to get that input from from Test and from Dennis, and I don't think we've done that yet.
Okay.
Well, because obviously, Ray, you've been discussing this at the high school,
right,
with your teachers.
And again, that was driven by fiscal, all right, financial. Our issue, as I told my teachers, if we have to cut teachers, we can't run a trimester schedule without dramatically increasing class sizes.
Right.
And that would be a detriment, not only to our teachers, but to our students. A disservice. It would be a disservice.
Well, and to support that, I know there was a study, and right now I've lost from whom and the title of the study, but basically that showed that effectiveness is largely impacted by class size. So I don't think that would be the direction we would want to go.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for that spur-of-the-moment report. We appreciate it. And Kelly, did you have a...
It was answered, actually,
Okay.
just in that last.
Say, remember,
Thank you.
class size was one of the things that was very high on the list for our parents. Remember, in lots of different venues, especially when we were having to close elementary buildings. But that was one of those that came up over and over. And there's studies to say that class size isn't necessarily as important, but
When you have 78% poverty,
Yeah, I
it's
was
a
getting
different
that
story.
story.
Directly
I agree.
correlates to
I agree.
Yes.
you.
Depends on the students in the class.
Because of just of their attention spans.
Right.
Thank you for pointing that. That's important.
Yeah,
It is.
our
Very
demographics
important.
make a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it looks like, as far as, in order for us to,
To give us some direction into what we need to do as far as gathering data, because we need to get it to you very, very quickly.
well, it sounds like there needs to
Intermediate
be
schools.
some meaningful discussion with the REA.
And then
Well,
intermediate
yes,
school.
that's
Right, we
definitely,
had
but-
that scheduled for Monday,
Okay.
but Mother Nature again.
Yes.
So we need to have that, and I do think we need to have an
Yeah,
in-depth
we've had it
analysis at
twice.
the intermediate level.
Intermediate, that's,
So,
When you say in-depth
And it-
analysis, how do you?
yeah, what?
well, I mean, some
How
kind
it
of,
would impact
some kind of
them.
approach of, much like Ray has given us tonight on how it affects the high school from her perspective.
Uh-huh.
I think it would be,
So I think it really varies depending on whether it's Dennis or Tess.
I'll
well, and we
add
should hear
one
from
thing.
both.
Right. So we
And
have both.
Hebron.
The conversation, I think, did recently begin because of the physical situation, but honestly, the last year and a half, it's popped up several times as we've talked about adding AP courses to the high school schedule and allowing kids an entire year to prepare themselves for those AP exams. And now with more dual credit opportunities and fitting those in with giving kids that opportunity as well.
And the universities
And-
are all
And
messing
with
with
Ivy Tech, that is, that's come up in our conversation, how the trimesters, how are we going to fit this in? And we keep tweaking and working with it, but it makes it difficult.
What would happen if our plan would be for a recommendation to come at the first meeting in February?
Schedule-wise.
It's pushing it pretty much, I think.
It,
What date
it
is it?
Rob's my guru
Well,
on.
either way, yes or no, we have to build the schedule. If we do trimesters, we got to build it.
Yeah.
If we do semesters, we don't have a trimester sitting there ready to
When's
go.
our February
So
board meeting date?
It would be February.
But we do have another meeting in
that, in fairness to our intermediate people, I mean, we're talking about meaningful input from REA,
Right.
When do you
and we're
middle
talking
schools
about meaningful
start
input
picking
from our
classes?
intermediate staffs.
Right.
And so,
But it doesn't affect does it affect the middle school scheduling in quite the same, intermediate school, I'm
Yes.
sorry, in quite the same way?
Yeah, they have to build their schedules as well.
Well, I think what you're asking is we have to talk to high school kids
That's what I'm
because they
saying.
select the courses.
Right.
In a middle school schedule, it's more of a tree that's built with a few adjustments.
And there's credit that
Yeah.
needs to be earned, and there are
Right.
kids
So
that are
it's-
working
it's-
toward
Now,
graduation.
Trying to work
our
with
kids
kids.
we're in the process. They can still choose their classes. It is basically the work that they have to do to build a schedule. And it's not easy.
But they're not going to be able to choose their classes exactly. They'll be able to choose the list of classes that they need, but
Right.
then they'll have to have alternatives and that kind of thing. And I don't mean it to diminish the middle school, but at the same time, they're not in the process of earning credit toward graduation. So while we do need to do that, I guess my question is, can we get a conversation going right now and work through some of that conversation so that we aren't delaying it 4 more weeks? Because that's
Well, I kind of agree with Linda. I don't see how we could do it anytime before the first meeting in February because, I mean, we need, now that this is going to be in the paper tomorrow, people need to absorb this. I mean, if we just make a decision,
No, we're not, I don't think we're ready to make a decision. We're just saying,
Well, but-
how quickly can we,
Well-
what do we need?
well,
done?
Kelly, could I ask you, is just your staff at Dennis, are they going to be surprised that this conversation is taking place?
Not at all.
Okay,
In fact, nor at the high school, and I'm sure not at Test.
okay. So, what do you feel is realistic as far as the timeline?
Well, we said discussion next Wednesday, where we can clearly have that conversation. We would have had it by now, had it not
Yeah.
been for the interference.
Twice
Twice we've had to cancel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's just unfortunate. So, that part of it can be taken care of there. And I think it's reasonable to say that principals should be able to, in fact, as we're speaking, I'm putting out to the membership to send me any input that they have regarding this, and then I'll be happy to forward it to you all. But I think that principals and buildings can do the same, and you could have some input from teachers.
So do you think it would be realistic for us to try to come to a recommendation and a decision at our next board meeting on January
28th.
28th?
It's either that or February 11th is the first February one.
I would say not knowing, all the variables that you're working under, but from our perspective, I think you could have the information to help you make that decision by then.
Sounds like a plan.
We will do whatever it is to try to get the information. We just need to know how to start out there and get it done.
I'm hearing that we really just need to feel confident that the intermediate schools have had the conversation in the same manner, at the same level, even though I would argue that it's still quite different because it's not earning credits. But and then maybe some community, the community has had a little bit, at least a moment to absorb it. But I guess you said there has been no conversation at the intermediate school?
Not that I've been made aware of. I would say, and I agree with you in terms of comparing intermediate to high school in terms of credits and those things, it is going to impact classes like algebra.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I keep saying I'm not trying to diminish that. It is just a different reason. Agreed. I don't disagree with that.
Well, one thing that we could do would be to ask the principals at the intermediate schools to have the conversation with their staff. And then, for me, what would be helpful would be, what would be some of the negatives that might occur if we would go back to semesters, and then what would be some, perhaps, strategies that would ameliorate those difficulties.
Sounds like the similar conversation as you had, and having
I like
that
though.
creative conversation about what.
We tried to gather it on paper, but that did not work well for us, just so that we would have more information. We did attempt that, but wasn't that easy in a short time.
Why don't you see what you can do? And if it seems feasible, that we can have a recommendation at our next meeting, then we can do that. If it's not feasible, then we'll
can't
have
do
to
it.
wait. And
Can we throw something on the website for the public to immediately, for them to immediately put in some comments and?
The other thing we can't do until we make this decision is we can't come up with a calendar for next year because it changes our.
That's correct.
Right,
yes.
I
Right?
do want you to know, though, that I've
Yeah,
worked with the calendar
plan A, plan
committee,
B.
and we wondered what it might be like, but I have a calendar that mirrors this year in terms of start dates and fall breaks and that kind of thing. And we have a calendar that we can adjust either way.
And I just want to speak one more time because I've done schedules. I know the urgency, because you're not just building one schedule.
No.
You build several schedules because you have a schedule, but then you have IEP schedules that
That is
have to be
correct.
plugged in. You have all these other special things that have to be plugged in. And you keep doing it over and over and over.
Right.
And the schedule makes or breaks your year, whether you want to.
Or your teachers.
Or your teachers. And so
Like I'm teaching
that's.
what? And I have how many students?
Yes, that's that, and then you have to go through all the balancing with the class sizes and all that kind of thing. So that's why I know that the people who have to build the schedules, that it's this is an urgent matter at this point in time.
Well,
Knowing this board, though, besides the fact that we want to have the conversations with the intermediate schools, and we want to report, have them have a similar creative conversation. I love that. Are there data points that you're going to be asking for? Because if there are, we should ask for them now so that they can gather that information for us. And I don't know what that is because I don't know how you
probably
prove.
one of the things that I would be, although Kelly alluded to that, is the premise that the trimester, that there are less discipline problems in the hallway. And we can have that to you Swiss boom, you can print it off.
I just
And,
know that, and we have promised to be data-driven.
Well, I
So
think
whatever we're asking for.
we got a
should-
schedule in our packet that, on that 57 pages, that had the plus and minuses.
I just want to make sure that,
You said you had to put that in there.
but I just want to make sure that's enough,
So-
though,
But I
especially if we're
guess,
going to try to do
you know,
something.
if we had data aligned with this and then the intermediate school also, I guess I just want someone to be able to have the opportunity, whether it's a parent, a student, a teacher, or administrator, to say yes or no, I agree or disagree with those points that are being made. I understand the urgency on the schedule, but at the same time, then maybe the board should have been involved in November or December or October or September too. So I just want to make sure that we give people an opportunity to soak this in, because it's going to surprise people. When, tomorrow, I'll guarantee you I'll get 6 or 7 comments within the first 4 hours of business that, so you're switching again, huh? And that's the type of stuff that,
Continuous improvement.
yeah, that's the type of stuff. But we also, as board members, we need to have the wherewithal to be able to say why. And we're going there.
Absolutely.
But I don't
Well,
think we're ready
and-
for January 28th.
I mean, we can use all the data in the world, but with the state making the changes,
We're pushing
See,
on it.
that's
That's
the
a big
one
push
thing
there.
that we came yesterday, it was like, the test is going to be in May. Do we want to just sit back and wait, or do we want to be proactive right now? And so that not only are our teachers ready, but our students are ready. And again, knowing every principal I've talked to in the state of Indiana is petrified for the new test because of that implementation dip.
Well, maybe we ought
It's
to just get every
going-
principal to boycott. We have 294 F districts, then something that would raise a flag, wouldn't it?
but I'm like Suzanne, knowing that we know what the strengths are. I feel we know what the strengths are of the trimester schedule, and being able to capture what those strengths are and trying to work them in to whatever schedule we end up with
Yes.
is so important.
Yes.
Because, we may think that those things aren't part of what has helped us get that A.
Right.
But the minute we take them away, we might find out that they were a part of what helped us get that
Right.
A.
It's one of the things I try to tell my staff all the time. I am not a believer in that you take something and you throw it all away. Any great coach will tell you, I'm going to take the best of this, I'm going to take the best of that, I'm going to take the best over here, and then I'm going to put that collectively together to make the best for my team. My team's RHS, and that's what we have to do. We're not going to throw it all away. We need to pick out what is working. How can we integrate that into and create maybe something that's even going to be better as
and
we move.
I guess that's the approach that probably needs to be taken with our intermediate
Yes,
schools.
yes, absolutely.
Now that we've had this extensive conversation, then they can have conversations kind of piggyback
Right.
on our conversation and how, it may be that they feel that the trimester schedule is best suited for them, but if they're looking at it, how can they take that schedule and adapt it perhaps to the...
And you know what, Linda, really, I just thought about this. That's what, they've already done that. Look at what Dennis has done. Dennis saw a need for, they wanted science and social studies all year long. And so you know what? They made that happen because they know their kids, they know what their students need. Perhaps, and Tess did what they thought was best. But
Well, and maybe
within
it's an opportunity
Yeah.
to, for Dennis and Tess to get on the maybe the same schedule.
Yeah,
And
right.
it might open that conversation. And so it may lead us to better than we have now, hopefully.
And that's what, yes, absolutely. That's what we always hope, that what we are doing
That's the
is
goal.
going to be a change for the better for all of our teachers and our students. Those are our people.
Well,
Any other
thank you.
questions?
It's a good conversation.
No, thank you.
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. And hey, if you think of a question tomorrow, call me. All right? So I
Gotcha.
will answer anything, or I'll
No,
find
we
the
can do
answer
that,
for
Ray,
you, all
so.
right? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at public commentary?
We are at our second public commentary.
Yes.
Anyone from the public? We don't have much public left, but, so
Okay.
I guess not. We're ready for board reports, old business.
I have 2 items.
Okay.
The first item is a report out. We had a finance meeting yesterday at 1:30. A lengthy meeting. Made me remember the times we had the 3 and 4 hour meetings before. But, it was really a small agenda, but it had some large topics on it. The first question that we are trying to address is what exactly is the role of the Finance Committee? And we need to put together a document or some kind of description of exactly what the Finance Committee is going to do and the processes that we're going to follow, and which would be stuff like the purpose, the composition, the meeting times, what are our responsibilities and our duties, and how do tasks and how do things get to the Finance Committee. We had a lot of lively discussion on that, and basically where we're at, I'm going to compile a document of maybe an outline. The other members are going to email me their additional thoughts, and then we'll have this document at our next finance meeting that we can go through and red ink it. It's going to go, Karen and Dr. Poindexter and I are going to kind of go through it first, through the creation of the document, and then from there add or delete from it at the Finance Committee. And it's something that I think the whole board needs to see and approve, because they may have some different opinion or some different direction or something to add. So that's the process where we're at on it. The second thing is we had an update on the transportation. As you know, that we've asked Sodrel to open up their contract, and we're trying to look at how we can eliminate using our cash balance to fund our transportation. So we've got some questions that Karen's going to go back and ask Sodrel. We're going to wait on some response from that. And then I would say that we're going to probably create some additional questions, and we'll probably end up having some kind of a work session in the near future. But we're kind of, the data's starting to come out now, so I think we can get some movement forward. There is one thing I want to announce to the public, is if we make any changes in anything, whether it's the provider or our services, this is going to be at a minimum an 18-month discussion. There won't be anything until the fall of 2016. So we want to make sure that we have enough time to really discuss. If we change our services, we need to have enough time at board level to discuss what those are and get people's. So there's going to be no quick decision on what we do. We have enough cash balance to cover through and carry us, so that's nice. So the other thing that the second item, any questions about that, I guess?
Well, you might, I think it might be important to inform the board what Karen is going to go to Sodrel and ask, so that we have some clarity there.
The simple question that we're going to ask is we received some cost analysis from them based on the structure of how the routes are. Well, the question that we need to ask first is, we want them to say, based on our existing services that we have right now, are you able to provide the same level of service with no changes and yet change your amount that you collect in your transportation from the amount that we actually collect that's after the circuit breaker? So can they create enough efficiencies themselves within their structure to solve our problem? We haven't asked that question point blank in that manner. We more approached it, what's your cost to do this and what's your cost to do that? And that's really not our position. I mean, they're a service provider. We've given them a contract to perform a job. We're asking them to perform at this level today with this criteria. That's all the transfer routes, that's all the normal pickups and deliveries home, that's everything. So the question that we need to ask and get from them is, if your contract is this amount of money, can you provide that same level of service today for that cost? Do you have enough efficiencies can you create enough efficiencies within your expenditures to do that? And then that's based on those answers and how that is answered, that's when it'll come back, because there's going to be a lot of things that I think will need to be discussed at the board level, but there's going to also be some finance pieces to that.
Thank you. I think that.
The other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, and it's too bad that Glenn left, but there was an article Thursday, January 8th in the paper about how the snow day decisions are made among the Wayne County schools, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to really expand on that article a little bit, because there are a lot of people that do a lot of work behind the scenes to make this decision. Glenn Slifer he's the point person for Richmond Community Schools that does this, but there's a lot of people involved, and I just want to add to the article, because I think it's a good time for us to thank the people in our organization that do things. This process starts, Glenn starts, if he has to go out on the roads, at 4:30 in the morning. He likes to be on the roads no later than 4:30 in the morning. So the first thing he does then is he calls and discusses with Bill Thomas. Bill Thomas works for Sodrel. Bill's also on the roads on those bad days at 4:30 because he lives in Newcastle. So he also helps look at the county roads. Then Glenn calls the superintendent, which is now Mark has filled in for him, so Mark gets a phone call. And then Glenn would call the bus garage and talk to Bill Thomas again or Suzanne. So, then he communicates with all the different superintendents. He'll actually call the superintendents in Centerville, Cambridge, Hagerstown, and Northeastern. He'll call the Wayne County Highway Department. He'll call the Richmond Street Department. He then communicates and calls John Hamilton. John Hamilton is the other area manager. Well, if you think about it, he is responsible for making sure the snow is plowed from all the parking lots. He is over the custodians, so the custodians go in early. So, right there, you've got 20 people that are there early in the morning, making sure our kids could go to school if we decide to call. And then once that's done, depending on the conditions, there's a bunch of different discussions. And then Glenn will have a final conversation with Mark about whether we make the decision to open or not. But then from there, if they decide to close the school, then it's not done. Sherry Robinson is contacted because she does the one call, and she calls the radio and the news stations. Rob Tidrose, he's called because he does the postings on the website. Karen Scalf is called because she has a phone tree to take care of, so she has work to do. He calls Head Start, just so they're in the loop. And then he calls the bus garage. All this is simultaneously. And
So there are just a number of people that are really involved in this, and I just think it's a good time to showcase and let everybody know that there's a lot of people that make this decision. So,
Absolutely.
so unless I missed something, I mean, there's a lot of people that are probably involved that I probably don't even know.
If I could say something, I appreciate, Jeff, you bringing that up, because Glenn has worked a lot of additional hours, because not only is he responsible for riding the roads that when it's negative 20, he's also monitoring all of our buildings' HVAC systems, make sure that we have heat and so forth. Not only just during the week, this Saturday, for example, he calls me up and we've got problems in some of the buildings because the temperature dropped. We had a basketball game over at Tiernan Center Saturday afternoon, so he had to make sure he had people in for that. And it just takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of extra time for someone like Glenn, and with John Hamilton and so forth, with the making sure the sidewalks and so forth are ready for the students. But I appreciate that. We have over 30 different organizations we contact, and Sherry does a great job of getting those contacted. We have over 6,000 people we call in the mornings, plus we call community agencies as well to make sure that they get that word so they're on board. But I'm glad you brought that up.
So it's just not as simple as the article is what the point I wanted to get across.
Aaron?
And with that being said and done, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up, and Rob for responding to it, it's all done in a timely manner as can be, but at the bottom line, it's all for the safety of our students. It's all for the safety of the students. That's what it's all based upon. So that's what I appreciate the most.
Well, and the other thing too, you see the county schools and they say they're going to have a 2-hour delay, but we've closed. But we have walkers.
Right.
They don't. And
You have a
if
different-
I walked on sidewalks today that I was holding my breath. It's they can be very scary. And then kids are out in the street
Well,
walking.
that's where the kids walk, in the street, because the sidewalks aren't cleared, so. And the funny thing about it is when we canceled, all the days blur together. Monday? About 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm kind of chuckling to myself because we canceled school for the safety of our students, and then I looked out my work window and there were 2 students walking right down the middle of the street. But, kind of, okay, it's funny. But I mean...
Because they couldn't walk on the sidewalk.
But I mean, just the fact that, I've seen and talked to the janitors and the custodians that it's just there's just a lot of people that do a lot of work, so.
And we thank them. We thank them so much for their above and beyond, and that's what it is, and the safety of our kids. And any other board reports, old business? Okay, Dixie.
Yes. I know this meeting's run late, but I had gone to Dr. Borff about the Success Committee, which you had turned over to me because of your circumstances. And the Success Committee last year did a number of very positive things, changing board meeting times, making sure that we had theme-based, where we could really tell our stories about our teachers and our kids, positive stories, and get those out. And and tying our action items to our strategic plan, which we felt was very important. A number of things happened like that. But when I met with him in November, then, everything happened, and so we did not get it started again. Here we are in January, and we haven't had a meeting. So we wanted to go beyond what we did last year, and this year kind of reach out into the community and do some other things. And as Suzanne and I heard, people are really saying we need to do a better job at marketing. So we want to discuss some of those items. And so I am going to put some dates out to you. We can only have 3 people on that committee. No?
It's a public meeting.
The Success Committee. Was it?
It's a board committee.
It's a board committee?
Or
So it's
board.
public.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, they'll be all public meetings.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to put some dates out. about that, and I will get with some of you, because we did have some other people serving on that committee from the high school, some teachers.
That's great.
And Bridget as well. So we will try and get that started again and move to our next level.
And on that note, I want us to, again, remember that we do have a communication/marketing committee. And so I want to make sure that we're not cross-purposing those two, and that we're not duplicating efforts. That group has honed in a little bit, not completely, but on the high school. Because when we talk about our enrollment losses, they tend to be at the high school. We've also readdressed, sort of with a new energy, comprehensive marketing plan, with the idea that rather than consider right away the costs, to actually consider what we need to do first, put costs to it, and then look for alternative ways to fund those activities. We've already got some really good ideas to capture some of the audiences that we already have in the Tiernan Center, for example, that are our target audience, like we talked about. Taxpayers without students in school is a really great market for us to talk to, and so whatever we do, you and I should really stay in close contact so that we aren't replicating and we're complementing those two groups of people. So.
Well, and as we set up the Success Committee, we actually set it up into two parts. We set it up, we wanted to focus on the internal, which was our board meetings and the way we conduct those and so forth. And then the other part was the external, and we have not focused on the external. And as Dixie and I were talking, I thought, wow, with our superintendent search going on, even though we have a lot going on and we are at a lot of meetings and so forth, it's still an opportune time to reconvene that Success Committee to begin working on our external pieces that.
And for example,
that we
the
had talked about.
Communication Committee is working on the concept of an elevator speech, which we have all talked about. And so, since that's kind of in process, obviously as we begin to talk about some of the things we had talked about, such as us going out into the community, as we've begun to do with the purpose that we're under right now, but to make ourselves available to community groups to tell our stories, which we're getting the opportunity to do. We can, use those, get the most bang for our buck out of those activities, I think, and the board can then participate in some of the activities that are already kind of out there.
So we will look forward to those dates. So.
Can I ask is there, I really don't know what the marketing committee is doing.
Other
you
than
say
what I
you're
just
marketing,
told you?
other than what you just told us. So I guess my question is there some way that you could send us a summary, or how can we, I wouldn't know if I'm doing something to cross your.
Well,
so is there some kind of a report out or some kind of,
Sure.
that way,
one of the things that you'll
because we
probably
may have
will
ideas that we want to throw too.
see soon are some drafts. We're going to be meeting with Mrs. Wolpe specifically about the high school this week, and so we'll be able to share out then the draft of a marketing plan that we have talked with the high school about, and so we'll be able to share that out with you and get some commentary on that as well. So. Go ahead, Misty.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, and it was such an aha when we started tracking the actual enrollment numbers. We knew our numbers were for ADM, but we weren't aware of where they were going and where they were coming from. And so that started this year for the first time, really. And so it has allowed us to see where our greatest opportunities are. And the opportunity is the high school. And so what we've done in the past 3 years, really, when we started this journey with the communication plan originally, Linda, was to look at the entire district. And so everything we did was district-wide and not specific to just elementary, intermediate, or the high school. And while we see that the elementaries are really holding strong with enrollment, where our work and what the data is showing us is that it needs to be more driven to the intermediate and to the high school side. So that was a big aha for us when we looked at the data and could see where our numbers were different and where that opportunity could be. And so that's why we met with Mrs. Wolpe and looked at what they were doing. An audit was done for all of our schools, and a communication audit was done for all of our schools. And then the communication committee met, marketing committee met with Mrs. Wolpe, and then presenting her with some ideas. Now, when I met with Dr. Poindexter this week, I do think there's another opportunity to make sure we do have ownership at the high school too, and get their feedback of what they see and hear from the students every day at the high school and what we can do there. So there's, but to answer your question, absolutely, if that is something that we need to do to provide minutes of the meeting and when they meet, we can pass those through.
It's not a public meeting, so I don't know if we need minutes, but some kind of.
No, but I can do a summary for you and then
And
supporting documents.
Who is on the communication or the marketing committee right now?
So we have Suzanne is the representative of the board. We have a parent, Chris Pierce. Bridget, of course, is on there. Brian Zimmerman, who used to be with the Platinum Item, he's now at Earlham, is on there. Pam Haggy is on there. She's an alumni, very active, supportive of our school district, is on there. Phil Quinn, when he is able to attend, and if he doesn't, he always communicates his thoughts to us as well. Those are, who am I missing? I think that's it, isn't it? Oh, Rob.
Is Pete?
Rob is there.
Pete Zaleski still on?
He is not. We had an original group out of the communication audit and plan that, and that group has transitioned to what we have now. So these are people.
Eric Marsh.
Eric Marsh from WCTV. So these are people that are given their time. They're passionate about the school district. Plus, they are active. You know, they're parents. They're alumni. They're active in communication in the community too. So it's helpful.
And I know it's a long meeting, but Misty said something that spurred another question that I had to bring up, is the attendance. I think that we should, especially with our budget cuts that are looming and stuff like that, maybe we could go to some kind of a monthly report out, or by building, by grade level on attendance as well.
That's easy, yeah.
Because that way we can maybe ask some questions that we may need to know.
We'll
Just-
talk about that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because isn't the next ADM
February.
Are you talking about attendance or are you talking about enrollment?
Enrollment.
Okay,
Enrollment.
all right, sure.
Just so we keep up with the
Sure, that's very
enrollment,
good to know.
Misty, do you want to know?
school by
That's
school.
between ADM and enrollment.
That's something we can eat.
That's all I have, no problem, so I'll shut up.
Okay, we are ready to preview our upcoming meeting. Can you do that, Dr.
Yeah.
Poindexter?
I
or-
can. I have one item on the, for the next January 28th meeting. We did receive, and we were excited about this, the Center for Excellence in Leadership, which is CEL, at University of Indianapolis, has given us an endorsement and wants to participate with us in the early college. And I've spoken with our coordinator, and I'm certainly excited about this because I'm an alum of this university for my undergraduate. So this is exciting to be able to that. And then also coming up, we're going to bring back the alcohol-free facilities policy first reading at the next meeting.
And possibly
The smoke,
trimester.
yeah,
That-
possibly trimester, yes.
That could be the next meeting.
Absolutely, as we've decided tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Press conference. Questions? Okay, Linda. Louise, not Linda.
You're Linda.
Louise, sorry.
That's her sister.
I know.
All my life.
That was a different teacher.
She doesn't even live here.
That's right. Well, you sort of just answered my question. I wasn't 100% clear at the end of the long trimester discussion when you expect to bring it up again and make a decision. Are you talking about perhaps the 28th or?
Depending on, I think, how the discussions
How we
and
can
input.
get the data from the middle level. I think that's important to
And
us.
then- okay.
Get that, we can get that to the board in a number of ways as soon as we can get the collection.
Okay. And I'm sorry I couldn't include every detail about that
Well,
incredible decision-making and the incredible work that goes into it, and people risking their lives out on the road.
Well, I appreciate your article, man,
And,
'cause you
and
covered all the
it was
bases.
fascinating to talk to everyone, and I wish I could have included, filled the entire paper with the names of everybody who contributes to that decision.
Make sure you check out the portal tomorrow.
I should reassure you, our schedule, our deadlines have changed. I'm not going to be writing the story for tomorrow's paper. It will be appearing.
Oh. So it'll be the
Okay.
next day.
Okay, we are ready for our bell ringer.
Okay. I would just personalize the bell ringer here tonight to what's happened with me. I have never joined any group for any short or long period of time that I have been more warmly welcomed than I have here in the Richmond Community Schools to move us with this adventure, wherever it may take us. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
That was an easy.